Next item is the field trip request for Scholastic Bowl.
Okay, so there was a question on this, and if you read the background sheet, the original background sheet I sent to you, I reviewed with my administrative procedure, reviewed the request from the teacher. And I think it's a precedent that we want to be cautious of setting, in that for our athletic programs, we pay for state competitions, and we do so for extracurriculars as well, whether it's chess team, speech team, those types of things that participate in a state series. A lot of these extracurricular or club events like Scholastic Bowl, Model UN, FCCLA, there's additional organizations that offer national competitions. It's not necessarily a next step in the tournament series. You know, it just allows schools, if you're willing to pay the money, to go and participate in a national competition. And I think it's great that the Scholastic Bowl wants to go. I think we should approve the trip, but I think from a board level, we should say that no district budgeted line items would support going to a national event. If this was a state series, I would say the board would help cover some cost. But being a national series, it's kind of like an optional event. And that still leaves open, there are some discretionary funds in the activity accounts that if Pam wants to assign a few dollars to help offset some cost, general cost, it gives the administration some flexibility, but it kind of sets the precedent from the board level and the district level that, we'll fund these activities, we'll fund them to participate in their state series or state competition, but anything above and beyond that would be self-funded by the club and the students.
And just to add, they did, while it's an optional event to go to, they did have to qualify, not by going to a state level, but by reaching certain scores in the regional competitions that they've done. So we're very proud of them for being invited to attend, but again, then they didn't come through the state series to get there. There will be another opportunity that hopefully they would qualify for the state series. So there are a couple organizations that work with Scholastic Bowl, and this one they do have to submit their scores, and because they've earned high enough scores, they've earned an invitation to attend.
I'm still a little confused, and we talked about a little, you're recommended not using board funds, but then you said, but Pam might have some discretionary funds we could use.
Yes.
Those seem to be conflicting suggestions, and, you're the administration. I'd like, whatever you want to recommend, I'm willing to listen to, but I don't see how we can say there's no funds, but then if Pam wants to, she can use them.
Like every year from we have different accounts, like when students lose their IDs or replacement fee costs, or for example, some of the vending machine commissions, I give a portion of that money to the principal in a discretionary account.
And you don't consider that budgeted funds?
It's not budgeted on an annual basis. In our levied budget that the board approves.
You have slush funds we don't know about?
Exactly. No, we talked about this. Is next year you're going to put it on to the budget,
Right.
are you not?
So when we collect those funds, it's in the activity account. I think we need to
Yes.
be careful of what
Yes.
you're interpreting as.
Yeah.
Everything is
one
a-
of the
it's
one
an
of the
activity
activity
fund.
and-
It's
A
not.
separate activity.
Yes.
It's an activity.
Yes.
So when you're
account
saying no
for
budgeted,
when
if you
kids
have
pay for
funds
activity
available
passes on their,
Right.
Yeah.
we get money to do school-wide events or student.
So it's not a
It's money
slush.
for
Yeah,
students.
John thinks.
That was Mike White.
It's
So,
Tim said it.
It's
I said
it's
it.
money that we use for student speakers, for student events to benefit
Okay.
the
We get,
we
like-
students.
talked about the activity funds
Yes,
before.
this is an
That's
activity
what it
account
is.
that
And they aren't budgeted.
I do not
but-
have a slush fund. You may come and
So
look
the
for
people
it in my
watching,
office.
people watching this TV right now, we have no slush funds.
No, it
coming
does
from
not
a
exist.
legitimate account.
The,
Walsh
and
was
it's
wrong.
tracked. It has to get approved by 3 signatures, and
So, but we're still the fiduciaries of all the activity funds. The board is. So even though we're saying it's no budgeted funds, do we have to make some kind of approval of you using the activity funds for something like this or not?
now I think with the way I asked the resolution to say that no district, I mean, we might want to say no budgeted district funds.
Okay. Or we
Let's
can
say-
make it clear, but if there's funds available in activity fund,
Well, that's why I'm leaving it
the
open.
administration's, why don't we just say it in the resolution?
Okay.
And it's clear what we're doing.
Before we pass this.
If we're going to pass it.
If this individual is a teacher,
Yes.
Yeah.
are we gonna have to substitute those 2 days?
One day.
One-
Friday, half a day
That's the
Friday
last day
and
of
Monday?
school.
Oh, is that the last day? Okay.
I looked it up.
It's,
Okay.
yeah.
And something like that, I
School.
mean,
I was just
right.
theoretically.
My thought is like, what we want to be, my intentions for providing the background to the board, what I'm saying to you is, I dealt with this right before I left my last school. We had some students that did really well at the FCCLA, which is like the Applied Arts to Business Econ. Well, they had a competition in Georgia as well. You know, before you know this, we're talking several thousands of dollars to fly students down, accommodations and all that. And these are, like Pam said, yes, you have to qualify, but it's still somewhat of an optional event. It's a nice thing, and if parents in the group want to fundraise for it and some of the kids want to participate in it, we should support that. But we shouldn't want to, finance that. We don't budget for that. When we budget for our activities, we budget enough to cover the stipend and some general transportation. That would include maybe up to the state series, not.
I think what
But the
Gary's
question I'm
point is
asking, because we're saying no
budgeted funds
budget, are
except
we
for
gonna,
a sub.
are we gonna put a sub in there?
The day he's leaving is the last day of final exams. There's only a final exam until 9:15.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Okay,
if he's not participating in
Yeah, I don't
graduation
wanna
that
put this
night,
resolution, we vote for
Yeah.
it, and then we just violate it based on the fact that we're gonna have to put a sub in for that
Right.
timeframe. And if it's not, then
I would say no district funds related to the event. This way, if it's for covering the sub of a teacher, it's not.
Or we could say in the resolution, you can cover a sub. That doesn't
Yeah,
bother
it
me.
does.
It doesn't bother
It
any
doesn't
of
bother,
us.
I just don't
Bothers
wanna have
whether it's
something-
accurate or
Yeah, I
not.
just don't wanna have.
I don't know what time they
So,
said they're leaving.
Kevin, I see your point about like not paying for the hotel and all that stuff, but he's only asking for the entry fee. It's $600. I mean,
Right.
offhand, I see what you're saying. Well, okay.
Could be 10 clubs a year that's $6,000. Now, is that a stipend that we cut instead of?
Is it really 10 or is this like just one thing?
Well, I would say to you that I would,
Precedence.
I would be careful of setting a precedent or we're opening the door for it. Because then when the dance team comes and says, hey, we want to perform at SeaWorld, but that entry fee is $1,500.
Okay, I'm taking.
So
the
that's why I'm
recommendation,
saying,
but-
like, I think this is something where if we leave it open to discretionary, the activity accounts,
Well, I want to ask one other different question. On the list, my pages are off because I didn't pull the new one off, so it's probably 81. The request form that Mr. Gibbons presented, on items 15 and 16, 14 and 15, 14 says the teacher will not be compensated additionally. I don't think that's a problem. 15 says the cost of the tour to participating students will include only legitimate expenses expected to be incurred by said student. Students are not expected to contribute toward the teacher's expenses for the tour. Does that mean he's got to pay his own way then, if he wants to do it?
That's exactly right,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a break from tradition.
Okay, any other questions? All right, given that, do we have a motion?
I'll do it.
All right,
Can you make that amendment for the subs?
all right.
And the,
Gary, you want to make the motion, please?
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 2A, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the extracurricular activity request to the National High School Championship for the Scholastic Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia, from May 24th to May 27th, 2013. No budgeted district funds, except for potentially substitute, will be contributed to the request as presented in the January 8th, 2013 Board Agenda Package.
Do we have a second?
second.
Second by Tim Walsh. Mary Ann?
Mr. Goodchin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Cindy?
Yes. All right, we're going to go for visitor statements, and because we have no visitors out there, we'll move to closed session. We're going to go to closed session now. And in that closed session, we're going to be talking about,
You got Dan's added item.
well, okay, so before we do that, but I can put that right after the closed session.
Yes, you could.
So,
It won't be on TV.
I was
though,
gonna
will
say
it?
it might help.
okay, so
Parents.
why don't we do this then, before we go
Thanks,
into
John.
closed session? Dan Moon brought up wanted to place on the item for no voting or anything, but just for discussion on school security. So I'm going to give that to Kevin to talk about.
I think the landmark First of all, I mean, it's a terrible event that occurred in Connecticut, and I know all of us as parents and community members would dread to ever have to experience what those people experienced. That being said, to answer your question, Mr. Moon, there's two things. One, the state organization for superintendents has recommended that you communicate openly with the community, that you take safety and the security of your schools as a top priority, but not to share specifics or specific drills or what your specific thought process is, so that you do not compromise your plan. The second thing is that the Landmark ran an article shortly after the tragedy in Connecticut, and they called all the local superintendents about things that you're doing differently now. And I did speak with Mr. Skolnick. We were not included in the article because I stated very clearly to him that we take it very seriously and we're not doing anything differently. We made motions to approve last year that the local police departments have access to all our security cameras. We have a buzzed-in approach with a greeter. All the things that we're doing, we routinely bring neighboring police departments in and do drug searches and narcotic searches with drug dogs. I mean, we've done some pretty significant things. We're constantly working with our police departments in that we meet with the chiefs on a quarterly basis. So are we changing anything specifically or asking for anything specifically? We are not at this time. The one thing that Pam and I are going to ask that we start discussing again, and I'm doing that with the local chiefs and after some of the mayoral elections for the different villages, is that we possibly looking at a school resource officer. That's something that I guess started being discussed before I came here, and that's something that we would like to eventually maybe see discussed in the future. But there's personnel costs attached to the village as well as to the school district. This is the first high school that I've worked in that does not have an on-site school resource officer or some type of officers on duty that are just in the school, and they're actually considered part of the staff. They work with the administration, they work with the building, and it's a great resource to have. It builds great relationships between the school and the local authorities. It also creates relationships between the students and the police department, so that they realize that the police are our friend. But that's something that I would propose to the board as I continue my discussions with the police chiefs. And after April, I would like to meet with some of the new mayors and discuss with them their thoughts on that. But other than that, I mean, we're planning right now, doing another safety drill with the Riverside Police Department. We have another drug dogs search scheduled for second semester.
What day is that?
No days. But what we're doing, I mean, we have a tabletop exercise every summer with the police department. We review our entire crisis manual. So we're doing some things, and I brought the administrative staff in on January 3rd. We went through our plan again before second semester. We sent out reminders to teachers to be locking their doors and doing this protocol we have in place. But there's nothing that, because this happened, we're doing differently. We're just making sure that we're what we actually talked about with the police department, and some of our teachers even came to us and said, it's time to start taking our drills to a higher level, to where maybe there's more role playing. And so
That's my question. And if you were to synthesize the details of everything that happened there and put it into RB, it could happen that way. Without giving away the details of how we would protect ourselves, have you and Tom and have you gone through the scenario and how you would deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need to know, because my family wants to know.
regularly,
Yeah. Okay.
not even like annually, regularly.
And all of the possible break-in areas do have cameras on them, and
We've
they're-
increased our cameras since I've been here. I think we've added about 8 or 10 additional cameras. The building administration is going to be putting out communications based on those discussions you just talked about
Yeah.
with the police departments, that we're going to begin narrowing the amount of exits that are, entrances and exits that are open
Right.
to the community to where it's 2 access points. Because right now on a school day, there's several access points that are open. And we're gonna get to a point to where either you're coming in one set of doors or another set of doors where we can have. So we're making continuous observations and review of that.
Well,
When I asked you the question a few months ago, you gave me a copy of a disaster management plan we have, so maybe you could provide it to.
Yeah, I have a copy
to
that is
Dan.
available.
But the other thing is, dawned on me when he was talking about, it actually dawned on me before, is, one thing that we might, since you got all your contacts now in Springfield, they should amend the Open Meetings Act to make an exception for discussing about the security and safety of the school,
I believe someone has already made that motion.
so that we could talk about it.
They want to add that to closed session.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay. All right, seeing nothing else, we're gonna go into closed session where we're gonna be discussing personnel issues, student residency matter, confidentially of closed session minutes review, collective negotiating matters, and litigation. So do I have a motion for this going into closed session? Dan Moon.
Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School, District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, or dismissal of employees, student residency, confidentiality of closed session minutes, collective bargaining issues, and litigation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by John Keane. Mary Ann?
Jessica?
Yes.
Dr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Grisham?
Yes.
Mr. Sins?
Yes. All right, it's 8:35. We're gonna go into closed session in our district conference office. I'd like to wish you all a good night. Thank you.